thanks very much and enjoy the seminar.
Well, welcome again, folks. This is another example of the platform in terms of that we've created in reacting to the COVID situation. This platform has been very useful for members to date in terms of the relevance of what's happening and the importance of what's happening. This discussion was very, very popular last week, so we decided to repeat this, and we will do so going forward as much as we can once Jackie doesn't bail out on us and say that she's busy doing other things than others. So I'll hand you over to our moderator, Brendan Kenny, who will proceed going forward.
Perfect, thank you very much, Paul. So I'd like to introduce the panel first, and if they can just give 30 seconds to a minute about who they are and what they do. First of all, Stephen Gallagher, Director from Gallagher Group in the Properties Division. If you just say a few words about yourself, Stephen.
Hi, Brendan. I'm obviously Stephen Gallagher from Gallagher Properties, mainly day-to-day roles, looking after office and industrial portfolio, and then I'm sit on the group board as well, which encompasses a construction and quarrying business as well.
Thank you very much. And next we've got Melanie Campbell, Head of Marketing from Cooper Parry. And I must say, when I was looking at your website, it was extremely funky and very engaging.
That's good to hear, Brendan. Yeah, so as you've just introduced me, I'm Melanie. I head up the marketing at Cooper Parry. We're a firm of business advisors and accountants. We're UK based. We're also a sponsor of BITA. I'm very proud to be as well. And as I said, yeah, I head up the marketing, so I'm responsible for all things communications.
Thank you very much. And next we've got Sarah Murphy, Managing Director of Business Post. Over to you.
Hi, Brendan. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm Sarah. I'm Managing Director of Business Post iQuest. So I'm a director with the Business Post Media Group here in Dublin, which we're obviously a national business title, but within the group we've quite a few different facets. So I mainly run the event side of the business, so about 30 live events a year, pretty much in the conference business side of it, so property, construction, tech, and we have a few B2B trade publications that come under my side of the business as well, again in that construction, property and hospitality verticals.
Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, Jacqueline O'Donovan from O'Donovan's.
Yeah, hi, I'm Managing Director of O'Donovan Waste Disposal, probably London's largest independent waste management company based in North London, and my remit covers anything that has to be done.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll start with the first question, which I've got here, and it's around the change and everything we're thinking about. So, at times of this uncertainty, what kind of strategies and scenarios are you envisaging moving forward, and what you're planning for? I will start with, let's go with Jacqueline.
Right, I don't think, as it's an unknown virus, we've never experienced anything like this for donkey's years. So I'm going with my instincts. I'm using my instincts quite heavily at the moment, going with my gut reaction, my years of experience. I do see that when we start bringing staff back in off furlough, that mental health and the staff's well-being is going to have to be top priority. So we're already moving second kitchen so we can keep social distancing, the 2-metre rule, sanitisers, face masks for people that feel more comfortable. But on the whole, it is my instinct I'm going with, and I'm weighing up the options, the pros and the cons, and then making my own mind.
Okay, and next, Sarah.
Yeah, so I'd agree with Jacqueline there in terms of instinct. It's something, it's so unknown. We have no concept of how this is going to play out over the coming weeks and months. We can kind of listen to government and our own, paper and journalists' opinion on it and medical professionals, but we don't know. So we have to, for us, it's been a case of adapting and constantly adapting and being agile as we move through this. A live events business, a lot of them in our sector here have folded overnight. And I think we're quite lucky that we've hit the ground running. We've, ask people to take some time off who have to, and unfortunately that's the case in some ways, and furloughing them, as Jacqueline says, and jobs will be there when things pick back up again. But for us, it's been really digital first, and you know, that digital transformation has had to, I was just speaking about it before, has had to kick in very, very quickly. So our events would be live events, and we've had to develop a digital platform, and we launched our first live only event this week's Digital Construction Summit, and tickets are flying, which has been a big win for us. And not only are we going to have the domestic audience that we would normally have, we now are going to have people from all around the world. So in some ways, there's going to be a huge opportunities are going to come from this that wouldn't have been there before. So I suppose strategy wise, it's adapting. We can't stay the same. We need to keep thinking outside the box and keep changing as the parameters change.
I think just one of the most important things you've said there is the opportunities to expand your business into further jurisdictions around the world. Because as soon as you've moved into the digital world, you're not constrained to the world the way it was. So that in itself brings more opportunities.
I think it's going to open whole new markets for us. And I think as a business, we're going to learn where we can be leaner, where we can be smarter, learn the hard way, unfortunately, for a while. But I think we'll actually come out of this in a stronger place, provided we can, navigate our way through the next couple of months while it's still extremely shaky.
Yeah, brilliant. Stephen.
I agree with all of that. From a business point of view, we've accelerated change. We've gone from virtually no remote working capabilities to almost, I'd say, fully compliant and fully able to work with. We share a lot between the leadership team that we've got, and we bounce a lot off. But as Jackie said, there's a lot of it's on instinct and your gut feel and your experience of what you've gone through and what you see coming up.
Brilliant. And just one thing I've noticed is that I seem to be busier now than before the lockdown, because you're more accessible. So people are putting in Zoom calls every hour. And
there's no vital places.
You're just trying to protect your diary. So we really appreciate your time. I'll jump into Paul before I come on to Melanie. Paul, what's your thoughts?
Well, I suppose the relevance for us was the main thing. And in terms of the first thing we had to do was look at the mission of what BITA was and how we change and adapt and make our new mission fit the new world. Because, I mean, at this point in time, we really had to find out what is the relevance and the serious side of that. And, because time is precious now. So what we want to do was make sure that when we're utilizing people's time, that we do so in the right way. We adapted in a way of, our strategy was meetings upon meetings upon meetings and talking to each other more regular than ever before, and more frequent than ever before, because it was changing so quickly that we had to adapt to those changes as quick. And we found a way to do that was put a structure of strategy meetings in place on a daily basis. And on a monthly basis for various other topics. But it was that sense of communication with the relevance and mission in mind, I suppose, was and then there's gut feeling as well, as Jackie's mentioned. But we had to take things into consideration of business is about profit. And we have to figure out ways of how we can reinvigorate that, So when I spoke about things like, the importance of construction sites to stay open, despite the impact of various people who were bad-mouthing sites who were brave enough to stay open, we slammed that notion, absolutely slammed that notion. We said, for us, we feel that the importance of the economy is leaning on the construction industry in particular. And we need, when this COVID-19 situation dissipates a little and restrictions are moved, we need the economy to be moving strongly. And a way to do that is promoting, the construction industry in particular as one of the key factors that will actually help the economy, stay at a certain level. So any of those people who were touting about these sites that were staying open, we promoted heavily the bravery of those people who kept things going.
And also, it's very interesting as well for BITA in itself as an organisation. Moving to the digital environment, it's allowed you to engage more, I would imagine, with Australia, with America and other jurisdictions moving forward, and added a lot more value.
Absolutely, and I mentioned this last night in another session that what you find out from various areas is quite amazing. And if we take the Isle of Man, I'm just getting Stephen Heaney's thing there saying I forgot to mention it, so you're in there now, Steve. But if you take the Isle of Man, for instance, there's a lot of learning in a small area there in terms of their adaptation to certain things that you can actually find out very, very quickly. So you can take areas like that as a test case and suddenly find out the successes that come from that. And implement them in further fields. So what BITA is able to do is lean on the experiences of businesses and members in Australia, in America, in the Isle of Man, in Scotland, in Cork, in Dublin, and merge them all together and communicate that success quickly. And I suppose V-code was something we mentioned earlier. There's another example of a possible solution. So if we can accelerate that, well, then BITA's doing the space.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Paul. And Melanie, you've now had the joy of listening to us all, and with part of your role as being management consultants as well as advisors, etc., I would imagine you're being called upon from all over the place to give advice on this kind of area.
Definitely, yes. Yeah, we are, and we've kind of been in the fortunate position really that our business has kind of been already set up in terms of remote working, flexibility. We're very tech savvy. So we've been doing a lot of working online anyway, communicating with our clients online already through client portals, through Microsoft Teams, etc. So the whole working from home is not really new to us. So that's worked really well. Obviously, going forward, we'll be focusing a lot more on digitalization. So not just in terms of communication, but we're looking at how we digitalize some of our service offerings, for example. So people don't have to be physically on site working with clients. They can do it remotely really easily and still offer the same level of client experience. And for us as well, in terms of culture, we've got an amazing culture at Cooper Parry, and we've worked really hard on our culture over the last few years. And so team collaboration, listening to our team, listening to feedback, acting on that feedback and acting on it quickly is really key for us.
Yeah, and I must say, if anyone gets the opportunity to go and look at the website, because it really is funky, I enjoyed going through that one. Next question is, Alexander the Great relied on alliances to resource his growing empire and ensure against rebellion. How's your organisation building alliances to resource and support its future? Apologies, I'll get my teeth in a minute. Mm-hmm. And in other words, in my speak, is who are you looking to collaborate with to help you to move forward? Because in my humble opinion, I think together we're stronger. And we'll start off with Jacqueline again first.
I suppose for me, it's my suppliers in these uncertain times with most of the staff furloughed and us being unable to work from home. We can't do what we do from home. It's the suppliers and the lack of contact because the accounts department is shut. So I've been responding to emails personally myself. And yes, although it does pull the emails back on, the spotlight back on you, and it makes you busier, I do think that the suppliers will be very nervous in the current situation and the current climate. We've been posting social media posts, again, putting out a positive message. I've done a few opinion pieces that have got into the media. But yeah, basically the personal touch from myself, and obviously we've got the brand to lean on.
Brilliant. And Stephen?
Firstly, apologies if the rain's really loud, it's torrential here, but I think collaboration's absolutely key. It's really important to share good ideas, practices, principles. I think we all need each other to get out of this together, and everyone to be healthy for the future. So that's also key. Share any knowledge we pick up along the way, and just use good, trustworthy industry contacts. So we're a sociable industry, so let's make the most of it.
Absolutely. And I think as well, from my own perspective, I think BIM is going to play a much stronger role in construction. I think it's going to be adopted more as people start to collaborate more as an inevitable consequence of this.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yeah, I think collaboration, alliances, I think it's key. And we would work with quite a lot of associations already as is. So for example, the Construction Industry Federation of Ireland would be probably one of our closest partners. We would run all of their corporate events for them and we do publications for them, etc. So for us, like as Jackie said there, it's keeping close to people, you know, and keeping in touch and working with them to ensure that as we adapt our models, that it's in line with what they want to achieve and that we're not going to go off in a different direction than our partners. So that's one example. And then also working with organisations such as BITA, such as the Chambers in Ireland, such as, you know, different organisations around the world that we're connected with. We launched our own series of networking events with our clients essentially, or people who we have some relationship with. We did our first CEO Circle breakfast last week virtually, and we had breakfast delivered to 10 of the leading Irish CEOs' houses before we all gathered, and taught leadership hour. And we had a couple of our editors there. Susan Mitchell is kind of the leading Irish correspondent on health, and she's a person on the phone to Simon Harris, our health minister, every morning. So those CEOs who we wouldn't sometimes get the chance to sit around a table with in real life, we were able to bring them in and get their attention because we had a leading, you know, journalist like that to give some insight on the situation. But for us, it's an opportunity to bring those people who are sometimes clients, sometimes partners, bring them together. And we're doing our next one next Wednesday over a wine tasting in the evening, and it's another group of CEOs, you know. And you know, I think the group we had last week employ over 35,000 staff in Ireland of the 10 CEOs we had there. And so for us, it's those kind of little things that we can do right now to bring those people close to us. And there's no ask at this point because there's nothing we can do, you know.
Yeah.
It's keeping our business relevant. And also a lot of that conversation is how, as a country, can we adapt after this, you know, and how it's not all commercially minded. Yeah, there's a business that we have to try and keep the lights on, but it's how can we work together to try and, particularly from, you know, get Ireland up and running and get the economy awake again once we're in a position to do so. So yeah, I think it's collaborating and coming together where we can, and utilising technology to bring people together.
Brilliant. Yeah, and again, we mentioned on the last one, it's a very lonely place at the moment when you're the leader in a business. So collaborating with other leaders who, with a shared experience can only help, from what I can see. Mel.
Yeah, so very similar really to what Sarah was just saying. For us, it's all about kind of strategic relationships. So the relationships like with BITA, we have a great relationship with Microsoft, we're one of their partners. We've also created a network of entrepreneurial business leaders. So actually taking the time out and actually talking to those guys and kind of sharing experiences really. And as you say, leaders very often feel very lonely. You know, it is lonely at the top, and in particular at times like this when there's a massive crisis going ahead. It's great to have that opportunity to actually listen to others on a peer-to-peer basis. So kind of being part of communities is something that's really key for us. So building that Hub CP community, and also being part of local communities as well, where we work and where we live. I think that's pretty key as well.
Excellent. Again, I'm going to paraphrase the next question. There's a lot of things of what success looks like, but a lot of the change now is redefining what success looks like in how you deal with people and how you protect your brand and how you move forward. What I'd like to know is, when you're making these decisions, how much is your future brand being affected by your present decisions? And I'll start with Paul.
Well, I suppose for us, I go back to the relevance again, because what we had to find out was the truth in terms of what we can be doing right now for our membership and our sponsors alike, you know, because we were faced with a very daunting task, because the organization primarily was events driven, and any subsequent profit that came from events was our lifeline in terms of our financial stability. So all that disappeared. So the level of understanding in terms of relevance was the first question. And so as a response to that, anything we've done online, we make sure it's relevant to our members. and that there's learning and solutions and wins in place for people like that. So anything we're doing now, we're putting great efforts to actually putting different platforms in place, whether it's CRM systems in terms of data, or whether it's the virtual world like we're just displaying right now. It is also the content of which that is relevant to members, and a continuation of building on that and giving people more trust in our ability to be able to deliver success in that regard. I mean, BITA as a concept has grown in the last year, 8 years, immeasurably. And I think it's, you know, times like this, it kind of highlights what the benefits are, because we have to show solidarity, we have to show community, and we have to show ability, and the ability to be able to communicate and, you know, do things that are actually currently relevant and currently successful in forming a solution. So that's what we strive to do, and what we've done is concentrated on our strengths in that regard that can benefit then our members.
And Sarah?
Yeah, well, I think protecting your brand during a period like this is key, but there's also, you know, there's making sure you're doing the right thing in what you're doing as well, in the decisions you're making, you know, and we had to, you know, you have to have a look at that, particularly when you have to make hard decisions around, you know, your staff force and that kind of thing in periods like this. And in Ireland, we haven't, there is supports there, but we haven't got the same support package that's been put in place in terms of furloughing staff and the support on their salaries. That's not in place to that extent in Ireland. So essentially, if you're laying people off, you're laying a lot of them off with little to no wage during that period. So I think we have to bear in mind that, yeah, you're trying to protect your company, but that there's a real human element to our business as well. And when we come out of the other side of it, someone else, I think Jackie said it, you know, mental and well-being of our staff is going to be key. So every decision we make during this period has to, yeah, help the business navigate its way through these choppy waters, but also to remember that everyone you affect along the way is still going to be there at the other side of this. So I think that's very important to remember, that human element, and to make sure your teams are doing well and to navigate it as best you can, and having them on board is key. I think with the, you know, there's hard decisions to be made, but if you're communicating to your business and to your staff and your workforce, and they understand that you're making decisions you're making to try and ensure that there will be, you know, a business there in 6 months' time, then I think that's key, because your brand is your people, in my opinion. You know, my brand is the people who are selling my conferences, who are putting them together, who are approaching speakers, who are approaching clients, who are speaking on media. That's who the Business Post brand is. So if they don't understand what you're doing, and if they don't feel like they're on board and you're not taking care of them, then I think you have nothing really at the end of it. So.
Yeah, and just following off of that, I want to sort of lead that question into the next one for Stephen, is what kind of new working practices do you think your organisation will be putting in place? And what I mean by that is flexibility of working, home working, and I know it sounds a strange concept for home working for construction, but there's a lot of back office in construction sites which take place, particularly in the buying department and marketing department, etc., etc. So it's just on that thread, how do you see that working?
Well, we've, like I said, we've accelerated our change. Quite a few of our guys and ladies are working from home, working well, productively. So it's all about outputs, and what they can do safely and productively is important for us and them. I think it will change going forward. We've had to be a lot more flexible around, especially around childcare, key worker spouses, what their husbands and wives do, etc. So we've had to be a lot more flexible, and I think they've appreciated it, which is good for all.
So, and do you think that's going to continue as you move forward, even when we're through the worst of the crisis?
I think there'll be some demand, to be honest, from employees, and I see it from our tenants as well. They're seeing their working patterns changing, and it'll take a while to settle down and normalise. But I think in the longer term, it will definitely change how people work and operate.
And Jacqueline, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm different to Stephen now, and I don't know if that's because we obviously are way smaller, but we've got an open plan office, and because it's a family business, we're in the office most of the time, and we found that one we can't really work from home, but the people that have actually done, so we've got about half a dozen working from home. And I suppose my biggest role in the whole of this lockdown has been to keep communicating with all the staff as well as the suppliers as going forward. And I've noticed that even the staff that are actually working at home, i.e. busy most of the day, they can't wait to get back in. So home working hasn't worked for them. They don't like it. They miss the camaraderie. They miss the one-to-one. So nobody will be putting their hand up when they come back to say that they want to work at home. So although they are doing it now, it's not a desired choice. We're going to have to risk assess everybody before they start coming back whenever that happens. We're looking at who has to travel via public transport, who lives the furthest, who's got health issues, who's a spouse to a key worker. We've already started putting the second kitchen in, so we haven't got a congregation in the kitchen. We're going to stagger start times, we're going to stagger lunch times, and I suppose we are going to have to be a little bit stricter with regards to the social distancing, the washing people's hands. I see complacency becoming the next threat. People are already getting complacent, where in the first few weeks everybody was complaining their hands were cracking from all the washing. Nobody ever complains about that now. I've got to say my disaster recovery plan 90% worked. Obviously couldn't plan for this because we didn't know anything about it or think it was going to happen. So yeah, I'm quite happy that we had quite a lot in place. I suppose if anything let me down was the phone system. Our phone system was the only thing that didn't really support us in a scenario like this. And going into this, our biggest risk was fire because of the transfer stations and the piles of rubbish. So we had to ensure that we minimise them before we shut the gate, although we didn't shut the gate and we didn't have to, thank God. But yeah, protecting the brand, like Sarah said, is key for me as well.
Just a question, do you work 24/7?
If we have to, we don't have. If we don't have to, we don't. But yes, we have got the facilities too. So yeah,
do you think? Sorry, do you think as you move forward, for looking after your clients, do you think you're going to have to be working through the night a bit more to, again, looking at managing sites?
No, not really, because we predominantly support the construction and demolition industry, so they don't work 24 hours. We don't do household curbside waste, so we have to work to the restrictions or the allowances of the construction sites, which tend to be 8 till 4, although I know there is a call to lengthen those hours so the sites can catch up, but I don't think there's an answer on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Melanie?
So for us, I think one of the things that we do already quite well, but we know we need to do more of, is kind of learning how to do things differently and not always thinking you've got to do it the same way. And I think a situation like this is kind of almost sometimes forces people to do that. And I think in a good way, I don't think you should just continually think, oh, let's just stick to the norm. Let's there's an opportunity now to try things different and do different, work a different way. And this has kind of proven that by everyone having to work remotely, that you can do it. We've got the technology in place. As long as you have got the technology in place and the digital systems in place, and that you are constantly communicating and staying connected, then it does work fine. So I think that's a big learning. I also think that maybe sometimes people have a fear that people aren't prepared to adapt. And again, we found after talking to loads of people in the business that, when we first went into lockdown, people were saying, oh my God, there's no way I want to work from home all the time. But actually, after having conversations with them now, people are quite enjoying it. They're really liking kind of the flexibility. They're realizing that, oh my God, I'm being able to spend more time with my family. I'm not sitting in a car. I'm not sitting in traffic. And now they're actually saying that when we do go back to the office, they'll probably even look to work from home maybe 2 or 3 times a week if they can, rather than just constantly thinking they've got to go in the office. So I think there's definitely learnings from all of this, and a great way to work differently going forward.
Brilliant. Paul, have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's not. I suppose for us, it was adapting in terms of remotely from a team perspective, and also not being afraid of this new age management as such. Like, you know, we're trying different things like VoIP, which is the voice over internet provision. So there's things like that, and I suppose in essence, it's an old dog like me, willing to learn new tricks. You know, I mean, if you take my, for instance, own personal situation, I couldn't even turn on a computer or you know, navigate around a computer very well recently, believe it or not. And you know, that's one of the things that I spent the last 5 weeks, and this morning I found myself in a meeting giving people solutions of how to fix their computer systems, and they're looking at me going, did that really come out of him? You know, so I mean, this is where we've got to adapt, and we've got to be brave about it, and it is a case of the old dog and the new tricks. So you know, from our perspective, it's all the approach, and one thing that you have to be very mindful is the effect that this isolation does have on people, because you know, we've seen it in our own team that you know, there has been people who struggled with the isolation and the loneliness of working in an environment of that nature. And when you're applying, we'd say, the stress of the day to that, not taking into consideration that very notion that they're struggling, you can push someone over the edge very quickly. You know, so we've got to be very mindful of what's happening in that regard, and the flexibility of accommodating for that is very important right now, and being mindful overall. But I mean, you know, this is the new age. I'm looking forward to the amalgamation of the old world meeting the new world and seeing where we are then.
Brilliant. I think it does open up some new challenges, especially for services you wouldn't even consider. You know, one of the things we were talking about the other day was if your workplace is now in your bedroom, as you can see the bed behind me, what constitutes an accident at work, and where does that be defined for insurance purposes, as an example, and what risk to the employer? All those questions are going to have to be worked through in that industry, and then we'll be told how it works. Anyway, I've got one final question from one of the audience members. And what do panelists expect to change with their approach to client engagement as we enter phase 2 and beyond? And we will start that with Melanie.
I think that we'll do a lot more collaboration with our clients in terms of feedback, in terms of our services, asking them what they think about, not just our existing services, but where if we're looking to introduce a new proposition, kind of getting them involved in it so they can help us to actually shape that proposition. And because now, you know, we know quite easily that we don't have to have physical meetings all the time, we can do that a lot quicker, and we can do it online, but still have that same connection with the client and still be able to offer that same amount of client experience.
Brilliant. And Stephen?
I've actually found that I've improved some relationships in the last month or so, and it's being focused on the task or what you're trying to achieve, and I think that works both ways. I think virtual will take over in a lot of ways, but I don't think you can beat being in front of someone as well, so it'll be striking a balance.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. The balance is definitely there, and I can't wait to get back to the lunches. Jacqueline?
Yeah, I'm with Stephen. I don't think you can't beat the one-to-one. And although I agree with Melanie about the change in the digital world, for some businesses it will work. In our business, it definitely won't work. Picking up on Paul's point about anxiety, I have got every member of staff from directors down with some form of anxiety, whether it be last week or last month or this week. So each day I'm having to G them on. So working from home just hasn't suited them. And to be honest, if it's not broken, then it doesn't need to be fixed. So when we can go back to normal, we will be going back to normal. Clients haven't wanted to engage differently with us. You know, I too are looking forward to the lunches. You know, if I had the choice of going online instead of going to Newcastle for a meeting and spending 4 or 5 hours in the car, then yeah, probably would do it. But no, this for me is just too impersonal. I think you can't beat the personal touch.
Thank you very much. And finally, Sarah.
Yeah, I would agree there what both Stephen and Jackie said in terms of I think you can't beat the personal touch of human contact. And with our clients, we have had to adapt, obviously, given that so much of our business is normally based around meeting physically. We have to adapt to bring in an interim solution, which is what this is and was what a lot of businesses are doing. And I do think it ticks a lot of boxes and there's a lot, you know, you can get done with it. But I don't think it will replicate, you know, even the online conferences we're going to hold will be brilliant and great learning experiences and speakers in from all around the world who we couldn't afford to fly into Dublin for a conference. But at the same time, it will not beat the opportunity for people to stand face to face and network and realize that they have a connection somewhere that they can do something about and build, whether it's a personal or a business connection off of that. I just don't think you can replicate that. So we're doing the little things we have to do now, which is the, you know, the virtual side of things, really launching that up and even doing like the events for our clients, like I said, the breakfast and the wine tastings, to ensure that we're building a sense of community for them during this period so they feel connected. And then hopefully at the other side of it, we'll be able to maintain some of the virtual perks that we've established, but get back to the day-to-day of the real actually physical events and physical meetings. And I'm looking forward to getting over to London again. You know, it's for our lunch myself, so it's been a while since I've been around. So yeah, you can't beat that one-on-one contact. And also just to echo what Jackie's point and what Paul said in terms of the mental resilience around this, and every, you know, I don't care what anyone says, this is having an effect on everyone in some way or form. Whether your resilience level is extremely high to situations like this or it's lower, it's affecting everyone in some way or form. And then yeah, so you have to be aware of that with your staff and with yourself as well, you know, and to acknowledge, you know, and Jackie says they're even G'ing everyone on, but you know, every person it has an effect on. So I think maintaining your mental health in a time like this is key, and your staff's mental health.
Brilliant. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for taking part, and I'd like to pass over to Paul for the final few words. But thank you very much.
Well, I suppose the final few words in terms of positivity. I mean, one of the revelations of this for me was when I walk outside my door now and I walk up the street, everybody's saying hello, you know, and that's the way it should be. When I left Ireland, you know, there's a car coming down the street, we'd wave at the car. You done that over here, you're a bloody weirdo, you know. So I mean, that's back now, and that's what we want to retain. And you know, it's so funny. We're walking through the fields now, and we're saying hello to everybody. And some people are stopping and having conversations. That's the way it should be. So one of the things I think, you know, we need to learn from this and retain from this is that type of activity, and keep smiling. You know, a smile is something that is so personal, but it can actually be passed on. It's infectious. You know, so if something I want to, another kind of virus I want to spread, you know, smiles across the world now, and keep positive, and just, you know, I'd like to thank everybody for their support, because what we do is sometimes a thankless job, but without your support and without your encouragement, the ITA simply couldn't exist. And when we put out the message to you guys of how relevant we were, we got a resounding response back from people to say, please keep going and make your efforts, and that meant an awful lot. So on that note, I'd like to thank everybody once again. We look forward to continuing to have conversation, to continue smiling, and very soon we'll be sharing a glass of wine back in the Royal Horse Guard at that lunch. Okay. Cheers.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Paul.
Bye bye.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.